I'm Van Sebastian here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins for this week's Written on the Edge Season 8, Episode 40 Friday interview. We'll be talking with Anthony van Leeuwen and talking about his book Sprookje. So let's get to know our guest. Anthony was 10 when he began to create through words, imagining someone to be with, to hang out with, or do nothing with. Someone who could be a best friend to a 10-year-old. He wrote a love song even before he knew he was gay, or before he knew he would eventually write a love letter to his prince through his current writing work. The recognition and encouragement he received from teachers and instructors ignited his creative enjoyment, and 5 books later, he's still exploring that passion. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So, 10 years old, why put words down? What was that spark all about?
I don't know. It just inspiration came, and you just wanted to write it down. And my mother had always encouraged my brother and I's artistic leanings towards whatever it was, and signed us up for art classes or took us to the library. Always signed us up for those summer programs, and just encouraged what was naturally coming out of us. And as the mother, that was a wonderful job that she did to recognize that and then encourage it.
Nice.
So it really kind of started there.
And so before we dive into the book, there was another topic you brought up about spirituality that I think helping people understand that will help them understand your writings in general.
Yeah, as spirituality, I saw a great cartoon that kind of encapsulated where I've kind of come to feel about it. And that cartoon had a little bottle with a man in there hugging his knees, sitting down against the bottle, and there's a cork on top, and he looks miserable. And then that's inside of another bottle with another cork on it, and there's a man there. And the smaller bottle was labeled religion. The next bottle was labeled spirituality. And the guy in there is pointing his finger at the guy in religion, laughing, saying, ha ha ha, I've transcended this idea of religion and I'm better than you. And then he was inside of another bottle with a cork on top of it. And outside of the larger bottle in the clear open space was just labeled consciousness. So I think in the spiritual community, there's a tendency to think I'm up here, I'm better than you because I've evolved to this idea, where it takes a little bit more effort to recognize where everybody's at in their own journey. And so I tread lightly in using terms. I don't consider myself spiritual.
Okay.
Just, everything is energy. Consciousness, whatever you want to call it, whatever labels, it doesn't really matter. But that's kind
it's
of
all borrowed.
It's like the Dutch philosopher from the Golden Age, Spinoza. He said that everything is God, energy, divine consciousness. This table, this meat suit, everything is made of the essence of source energy, God, whatever label you want to call it. So although the labels of God, spirituality, divine, spirit, soul are all relatable to everybody, and I will use those. It's not something that I personally relate to. So it's more just energy. Everything's energy,
Okay.
and where you put it and that sort of thing.
So how does the twin flame journey apply to your writing?
Well, the spiritual awakening that I went through is basically discovering everything that you are not. Like the classic question, I am who I am, but who am I? You can say I am male, gay, writer, white, whatever family name you have, and American, of Polish, Dutch ancestry, all these labels and layers that we've been given, that pile on to that energy, that source of energy that fuels us all. After 40 or 50 years, if you don't live up to everything that society or that you've imposed upon those labels, including son, father, uncle, cousin, the pressure that you don't live up to that. It's no wonder that, mental breakdowns and nervous midlife crises are a thing, because who can live up to all that without making a mistake and being human? So I think that, you know, life is eventually going to throw you something that starts to break that down, whether it's the loss of someone very close to you, or your own near death, or a loss of a job, or a loss of a relationship, for you to start questioning, okay, well, who am I now without this person in it, or this whatever it is. So I think it triggers that journey of questioning, like, well, who I am, but who am I? Who's asking the question? This energy, this consciousness, this God, this divine. That's all it is. We're all fueled by the same thing. So I kind of mine was triggered by, in the spiritual, they call it a dark night of the soul, but I think a more proper term is a dark night of the ego. The ego, is designed to keep you safe, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then if you've got all these layers that you're trying to live up to, and then one day it all comes crashing down, then it's really the death of the ego, and remembering who you really are. You're not any of those things. So for me, mine had started with several years of just a lot of loss, and my father dying, relationship ending, physical injury that took its toll, and I'd started doing GHB and crystal meth, and just escaping all this pain, and then the Trump years weren't all that easy for any LGBT person.
Girl, we were all in pain during that period. We're still in recovery.
Having that thrown in your face again, and for anybody that had a difficult time coming out, or whatnot, for me, it just triggered all that awful experience that I had gone through. Right around the time I had a brother who died, and that was kind of my first awakening. And then you can awaken and go back asleep if it's too much, and then life will throw something else at you years later. And for me, the culmination of all those years of loss, and doing drugs again, and all that sort of thing, was my best friend, who was my friend who got me through my brother's death. Was just the cherry on the top of this exploding bomb that just sent me downward spiral to overdosing on GHB, and having this near-death experience where I had, felt I had left my body, and I felt I didn't see a light. I was that light. I was that consciousness, life force, source energy going back into the body. And then you see that dead body on the bed, and you realize that you're none of that. And so it sparks that journey, to the point where months after that experience, I finally, instead of escaping all the pain, mental and emotional pain I was feeling, I finally felt it with a breakdown and along the Hudson. And it was just that, like Whitney says, I crashed down, I tumbled, and I did not crumble. You get through all the pain and you find your own strength. And, in that moment where I finally allowed all that anger and pain out, and just, which is good. You're taught, especially as males, not to express your emotions, especially one like anger. And until it all gets stuffed down and further and further and further, and that stuffed energy, emotional, mental, eventually manifests in some sort of physical disease. So, for me, in that moment of asking that question, who the fuck am I? Oops, I didn't know if I could swear, but
it's your show.
It's
You
your
can
show.
if you
can
want.
do what you want.
Sometimes it's just as effective. Yeah, you just crumble down, and then you that light, that source energy that's in you, starts to come alive and say, this is who you are. And you kind of rise up and have this kind of incredible Hulk moment where that starts to break all of these layers that have built up. And I think I'd mentioned the story with you guys about the Golden Buddha, where they found this statue of a Buddha covered in mud, and 100 years later, they were moving it and it cracked, and then it was revealed that there was gold underneath it, and it was this gold um, Buddha. And that gold, that essence is what we really are. And that mud is all of these layers that we've been placed upon either by our society or by our religion and life. And so it starts that exploration or that journey. And for me, I had had this experience with this man 23 years ago in Amsterdam, where it was coming out of the first dark night of my soul, coming out of my brother's death and beginning the stages of coming out, that I had met this man, and it was romantic and intimate, and he mentioned love, and I ran like Cinderella because I wasn't out. And a few years later, I went back to search for him, and that kind of started the gave me what to write about. You know, this idea of a man searching for a man he knows nothing about, not even his name. And
And the two of you are on the cover, right?
that's us on the cover.
Do you want to
And
hold it up and show folks?
yeah. It was kind of the moment.
And so you're the one in the background peering out the
Yes,
door.
yes, coming out of this dark room in this club in Amsterdam, where we had spent many nights going from sex to intimacy and exploring that. And then when I came out of that and we saw each other for the first time, then that's when I bolted. And then you found that self-love to come out a few years later. You realize, this same feeling was what I felt when I was with this person. Such a shame I didn't know anything about him. So I went back to Amsterdam just to search, and it went on this wild 20-year adventure that produced 4 books. And when I had my overdose and was pulling myself out of that, I never found the guy. And when I had that moment on the Hudson and I started to pull myself out of this experience, I picked up my writing, and I hadn't really touched it in about 6 years, tinkered with it here and there. And I was decided that the 4 books that I had envisioned I'd just wrap it up in 3 and just be done with writing. And I thought I would have our lost innocences, these 2 young people that had met all these years ago, would meet in some parallel universe, and that would be the end of the story, because it didn't seem like writer and middle-aged writer and whoever this now man was were ever going to meet again. So that's what I did in that story, and finished that book, and decided to give up on writing. And then 2 weeks later, he came walking down my street. So that sent the journey even further, because it took me, from this depths of hell, really, that I was living in, to this impossible dream of finding someone that you have know nothing about. And the fact that he finds you on your street 20 years later just rocketed me out of this dark night and fueled me with this new story to write. We didn't pass each other or stop each other on that initial pass. But then it sparked the idea of, well, what would you tell this person that you so briefly met, and then you write 4 books about him, and 20 years later he pops into your life. So that was kind of the impetus for this book. And months later, I had because I could never understand, like, why does this particular person keep coming back to me in dreams and whatnot, and inspiration. And I'd come across the term of twin flame, and there's a lot of misinformation out there in the spiritual community. It's supposed to be this one person, but they're really just your activation towards your own enlightenment, towards what we all really are. We're all just one energetic being of the same thing, and this duality is just an illusion. So they are we're all reflections of each other. Whatever you see in me, you're seeing in yourself, good or bad. And they are this perfect same vibration. We all have a frequency, we all have a vibration, and they are the same one. And so they're that really direct mirror of all your stuff, and they trigger everything. And there's an activation where your chakras are lined up and they're activated. And so that kind of that light, like the Incredible Hulk, just kind of cracks all that mud and starts your activation, this Kundalini activation, this heart chakra opening, this awakening to living out of this matrix mind that we've been conditioned to. And
Wait,
more
you're the girl in the red dress?
yes.
Well, what
Yes,
I want to know first before you continue,
yes, please.
did you give your muse like a holiday or vacation? Because god damn, she was working overtime.
Yeah. I suppose I should. No, I didn't, but I suppose I should think of
You
that.
might wanna go easy on it for a
Probably
while.
fair. Yeah, probably fair for sure. Yeah, but it continues with this experience of this looking at every shameful, guilty wound that you have and having it reflected in you, rejection, abandonment issues, not feeling loved, especially as gay men from our fathers, and that role model of what it means to have a relationship and with a man and being loved unconditionally, and ultimately it's the twin flame journey is the journey back to yourself. But, yes, it has something to do with the other person, but it's they have to go on their own journey as well to that internal journey. So there's a lot of misinformation that you have to be together or end up together, all this sort of thing. And yes, you can if you both desire that and that sort of thing. But when you take all the energy off of that other person and put it onto yourself, then it's really about awakening to your own, I will use the word divinity, and the universe, the consciousness, whatever you want to say, it doesn't judge. It loves you unconditionally. It's humans that are judging you, while we're judging one another. So that's kind of the gist of what seems like a complicated subject of this twin flame thing, but it all made sense to me. It was like these paranormal experiences of dreams and whatnot, and even my near death, and you hear people speak of that. You have like psychic experiences, or in my meditations I would see spirits or people that I knew that had passed over, and you caution yourself in speaking of this, because it's, but your own experience, what you felt, and so you have to get to this point of not caring what anybody thinks, and trusting that what you're experiencing.
Right. So, what do you want listeners to know about Sprookje in specific?
It's my story of okay, so all these seemingly terrible things happened, and that's life. But throughout it, I try to highlight all these also very beautiful and seemingly magical moments that seem out of this world and unbelievable, and that you're going to have good and bad in life, and as long as you can keep seeing the good in it, that's what's important, and then taking from the bad that it's really triggering you, whatever the bad experience is. Like I don't blame any Republicans or Trump supporters for triggering all that stuff in me. Thank you for triggering me up, for helping me to go deeper level of self-love, and it's sort of like the movie Life is Beautiful, years ago, the Italian movie, where you're in the concentration camps, but he's still finding the beauty in life. And probably the biggest thing is anything is possible. Nothing is impossible, not even finding someone that you know nothing about, not even their name. So yeah.
Very cool. Where is the best place for people to find the book?
It's on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay.
On all the online sites. Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to mention that I didn't think to ask?
Yeah, no, I don't. Not offhand.
Should we mention that there's a novella at the end?
Yeah, there is a novella at the end. Yeah. And yeah, it's kind of the first part is this kind of everything you say to this person, and then it's kind of I don't know that you want to call it the reality of what happened. But it goes deeper into I guess the twin flame experience without mentioning that term.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it leaves it off for is there more? Yeah, there could be more. And yeah, I have other books and other ideas, and it's always at that moment in the creative process that you give birth, and it's was part of depression, and I can't look at this anymore, and you just take months off, and which, as I've come to learn, is part of the creative process anyway. You need that separation, and then something happens, and you get this idea, and like, oh, wait a minute, that could and it starts the wheels turning again. So yeah, they could always be more.
Perfect. So where is the best place for people to follow you and keep up with your updates?
Anthony van Leeuwen is my Instagram, and same with the website, myname.com.
Perfect.
Usually post things on my website of upcoming events and that sort of thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any final words of wisdom?
I don't know. It's just what I tell myself.
And you've imparted wisdom throughout this whole thing.
Follow your heart. It's never led me wrong. And when I came out of my near-death experience, I was terrified, and I heard angels or my father or whoever. I heard a voice, and it just said, keep moving forward, keep moving forward. So now I've adopted that as my life mantra. Follow your heart and keep moving forward.
Awesome. All right, folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Anthony van Leeuwen for joining us. Anthony, thank you so much.
Guys,
and thank you for sharing copies of your book with us. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, folks, we at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. So if you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. The show is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.roadpodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Bye now.
What's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.